Welcome to Let's Talk Memoir, a podcast for memoir lovers, readers, and writers. I'm your host, Ronit Plank. Let's Talk Memoir is also a Substack newsletter. About once a month, I publish memoir craft advice, answer questions about memoir writing, and share my latest classes and upcoming events. You can go to substack.com and subscribe to Let's Talk Memoir for free. You can also find me, Ronit, on Instagram and on Blue Sky. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Let's Talk Memoir. I've got a special treat. Today, I'm joined by three guests, and they are all connected to a project that I am also connected to called Manna Songs. It is stories of Jewish culture and heritage. And for those of you who are watching, I am holding up my copy of the book, and actually, so are my guests. We appear in this collection together, and we also have the editor of this collection here with us today. So let me introduce my three guests. Diane Gottlieb, MSW, MEd, MFA, is the editor of Manna Songs, Stories of Jewish Culture and Heritage, the award-winning anthology Awakenings, Stories of Body and Consciousness, and Grieving Hope. Her writing appears in Brevity, Witness, River Teeth, 2023 Best Microfiction, Smoke Long Quarterly, Bellevue Review, Colorado Review, Judith, and Jewish Book Council, among many other lovely places. She is the winner of Tiferet Journal's 2021 Writing Contest in Nonfiction and a finalist for Hole in the Head Review's 2024 Charles Simic Poetry Prize and Florida Review's 2023 Editor's Choice Award in Nonfiction. Diane is the prose CNF editor at Emerge Literary and the special projects editor at ELJ Editions. Welcome, Diane.
Hi, so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I can't wait to talk with you about all the things, including this balance between writing and editing, which we really do need to address. And then my next guest is Jennifer Fliss, who is a Seattle-based author of the collections As If She Had a Say and The Predatory Animal Ball. Over 200 of her stories and essays have appeared in Friction, Pank, Hobart, The Rumpus, The Washington Post, and elsewhere. She was a Penn Parentis Fellow and recipient of a grant for Artist Project Award from Artist Trust. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're here. And Jen and I have a long history together, which hopefully we'll address during our time a little bit. Yeah. And finally, my guest is Nina B. Lichtenstein, who was previously a guest on Let's Talk Memoir. And she is a native of Oslo, Norway, and holds a PhD in French literature from UConn and an MFA in creative nonfiction from the University of Southern Maine's Stone Coast program. She is the founder and director of Maine Writers Studio and the co-founder and co-editor of In a Flash Lit Mag. Her writing has appeared in various journals, magazines, and outlets, as well as in several anthologies. Her book, Sephardic Women's Voices Out of North Africa, was published by Guyon Books in 2017, and her memoir, Body, My Life in Parts by Vine Leaps Press in May 2025. She has 3 adult sons and lives in Maine with her husband. Welcome, Nina.
Thank you, Ronit. Thanks for having us.
Yes, it's so wonderful to have you here. And I should note that we are here to talk about this collection and talk about Jewish voices and the importance of gathering us together in this collection. And Diane, what did you first envision? When did you first envision this collection? What was the impetus for you to start work on this project?
So it's a really interesting story. It wasn't my idea. The founder and the force behind the press, ELJ Editions, Ariana D. Den Blaker, who happens to be a devout Catholic woman, came up with the idea. She said, I love Jewish stories, Jewish culture. I want to support you guys and put out an anthology. How about editing it? And I want to call it Manna Songs because just like manna in the desert of our ancestors, our stories sustain us. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, my heart just exploded with that offer. Of course, what's interesting is that she thought of this a few years back before October 7th. And once October 7th hit, we put the project on hold for a little bit to see, what we were going to do with it. We decided no politics. If you want opinions on the situation in the Middle East, there are plenty of places to go for that. And we decided to focus on Jewish joy. Always welcome, much needed now. And that was really how it started. Then we put out the sub call, and we got amazing essays. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I love to know that it was her idea and that it preceded the terrible events of October 7th. I didn't know that. And I love the allyship between her and you, and the fact that we come to this as allies and from so many different experiences, but we make space for each other. And of course, I really appreciated, and we're going to get into this, the variety of voices that span the Jewish lived experience in this collection. We're all so different, and there's no one is the same. No one even who observes Judaism similarly is the same in their approach. So before I get into the other writers who are here today, can you talk about your work as an editor for ELJ Editions, your ongoing work, how long you've been there, and what it's like for you there?
I love it. First of all, I love it there. I love working with Ariana. The first project I did was Awakenings, Stories of Body and Consciousness. And you both are the two on the bottom there, Nina and Jen, both have essays in that collection. And it was just an amazing experience. I hadn't done that kind of work, although I have been a lead editor at a few journals. Right now I'm at Emerge Literary Journal. When I was at Antioch, I was lead nonfiction editor for Lunch Ticket. And yeah, I love editing. It's just such an amazing experience. And I find it makes me a better writer. I love editing my own work. I love revising my own work. I'm one of those crazy people who think that's the
fun part.
greatest fun.
No,
Yeah,
you're not correct. You're in good company.
Well, because then
Okay.
the work is there. It's already on the page. You just have to move it
That's
around and change it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. Like, I read out loud and I say, oh, wow, it's not hitting perfectly. And, and it's just so much fun to spend 3 hours on a sentence or more. And so maybe I need to get a life, but anyway,
That's a good life.
fun for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I love seeing like the potential in essays and thinking, oh, how can I help this author bring it a bit higher? And some pieces come to me like almost there, and I love saying, how about if we just tweak this? And it's a joy to work with authors and bounce things off each other.
I'm going to interject, Diane.
This is
and
Nina.
say-
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that it's wonderful to work with you because the way you propose edits and your comments, your editorial comments are like my role model way to do it when I'm editing for people. Because, some editors are kind of, let's say, harsh or direct, or they don't really actually care about the way we're so emotionally invested in our writing, it feels like sometimes. So you are so good at that. Really,
Thank you.
it's a pleasure.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that so much.
I think sometimes, this is Jen.
This is Jen.
I think that sometimes editors will come at something as if they are more senior in the project than the writer versus a partner.
Oh, yes. I've had that
with the writer.
experience.
And I think that's where that kind of cockiness and surefire and not really taking care of the writer in the same way comes from, whereas Diane, I think, really approaches it as a partnership. So
Yes, it's sort of like how about, what do you think? That's kind of the question. That's the feeling I got when you were editing my essay in this collection. And I wonder, this is a very broad question, and any of you can answer, but first, Diane, what helped essays stand out to you? Because I know writers who are actively submitting to different anthologies. Maybe they don't have a first book out yet and they would like to be included in an anthology. And there are a lot of writers listening who may not have a memoir yet, but they're working on a collection, or they're working on individual pieces. What is some advice, and any of you can answer this too, that really makes something stand out to you?
Okay. People ask me this all the time, and I don't have expectations in terms of content necessarily. I love to be surprised, and I was totally surprised by the depth and the breadth of
Mm-hmm.
topics,
Mm,
even within Jewish Joy. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
just was astounding. But in order for an essay to make it into an anthology that I'm editing, it has to teach me something. It has to move me in some way, make me laugh, make me cry, make me think of something in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see that the author's position has shifted somewhat from beginning to end, that there's
Mm.
some sort of growth, and I like to be carried along that journey. So
mm.
that's what makes an essay stay with me, and
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
look for.
Jen or Nina, do you want to speak to this? I know, Nina, it sounds like you've been doing some editing, and actually, Jen, you edit also. So, do you want to chime in on this at all for all of the listeners who are wanting to hone their work?
Right. Jen, do you want to go first?
I don't think I have anything. I mean, Diane, I think, really has a lot of experience with this. I typically edit fiction,
Mm.
Ah,
but I think a lot of, especially with nonfiction, a lot of people tell what happened. And that means sometimes every detail, where they moved in the room, things, and I think it can be difficult for people to know where to omit
Mm-hmm.
and where to shift from one thing to the other for maximum power and impact. And sometimes I have done some long project nonfiction editing, and I think that everything I've actually read has been a very interesting story, but I think it's really more the details. Because honestly, everybody's got that memoir or novel in their back pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like so many people do. And some people don't have, I hate to say it like this because it's not fair, but don't have that interesting of a life. But you can take
Mm-hmm.
any
Anything.
life and
Mm-hmm.
any story and make it interesting if you choose the right
mm-hmm,
details and the right
mm-hmm,
places of
mm-hmm,
transition. So for me, when a writer gets that, it moves you like a song. You're reading
mm-hmm,
through it like it's poetry, and it just kind of
mm-hmm.
moves, and it's got cadence. And I don't know why I'm doing these hand motions, but it moves like that. And typically, that's actually like it's hard to explain exactly what that means. But when a piece has movement like that and it's dynamic like a classical piece, it that's what really gets me. And sometimes it's not fully fleshed out, but you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know if that even really
I
answers
Yeah,
the
yeah.
love
question.
What about you, Nina?
So, yeah, so I love when you say dynamic, the word you use,
Mm-hmm.
because so as an example, I'm just about now to dive into reading the submissions for In a Flash
Mm-hmm.
magazine's November submissions, which is on the theme of roots. And In a Flash is unique in that we do 500 words or less of creative nonfiction. So and I've heard that there's like a lot of submissions this month, and we read blind. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
I'm kind of nervous, but also excited. And apparently there's a lot of submissions. And what I know is that when I read, I notice that energy, Jen,
Mm-hmm.
that you're talking about. And also what you said, Diane, that I'm looking for the pieces, like this is how you start the weed out process, right? You're looking for the pieces that either you see that kernel of wonderful potential and it needs a little work in collaborative editorial process, or it just blows your socks off because
Mm-hmm.
the language is so beautiful, or the emotion it stirred, and in that compact space of 500 words, right?
Right.
Yeah. But in terms of being new to submitting work and having maybe a memoir in one's pocket, I will say that the essay that I had in Awakenings, the body anthology that Diane also edited, is an excerpt from my memoir. So, and it started as its own essay before the whole memoir was collected. So that's a piece of advice to anyone who's has a long-term project in the works, that not to be afraid to start to submit something from it that can be
Mm-hmm.
edited as you complete your manuscript, but that then has already been out in the world and received feedback. And so that's one way to sort of get the ball rolling.
Yes, and there are, I just realized that basically this is a conversation between 4 writers and 4 editors because we all edit in some capacity. And I would say that I want to sort of dovetail what I want to say about this. What happened is not as important. When I edit at the Citron Review and my private editing clients, it's not really what happened that matters, at least in memoir. It's what you make of what happened and what you're trying to see and understand and show the reader. And I think deciding what to keep and what to throw out, that is sort of a calibration. And I know when I was first writing fiction, that's where I met Jen, actually, in fiction at our certificate program at the University of Washington years ago, when our kids were really small or not even here yet.
I was pregnant.
Yeah, yes. I couldn't wait for that time when I would be able to discern when a piece was ready or not, when I wouldn't have to rely so heavily on my workshop partners and teacher. I just wanted to have that ability to gauge it myself, that independence, and to know this is good as it is, this needs more, this needs less. But I do think there comes a time when you need outside eyes, beta readers, editors. Editors are gold. And I think that there are no really boring subjects necessarily, but there can be boring writing or less attuned writing, or writing that doesn't have quite a voice, right? So what knocks your socks off, it really can depend. And there is no overarching answer to that, except that I know when I'm reading for the Citron Review, often there's a voice or a presence or a tension there that gets me to keep on reading that piece. And I want them to just wind it up with, I just want them to finish it off with such a flourish or such an impact that I'm like, yes, you did it. You nailed it. You came here to say something and you did it. And sometimes they don't go like that. And you're just, well, it's not quite there. Yeah. Okay. So Jen, I want to talk to you about, let's start with your contribution to Manna Songs, the understory. I want to know a little bit about how you created this essay and what you wanted to convey.
So after October 7th, I stopped writing because the literary community was not very welcoming. And it just kind of, prior to then, maybe like 10% of my writing had Jewish content. But then I found when I would sit afterwards, when I would try to write, it would all go right there. And that's fine. And I write because I love it, not to get published. But I do now at this juncture think about getting my work out there, because it's been great to have people read it and respond positively and have their own experiences, especially in my nonfiction writing, things that they can connect to that are difficult or have been difficult in their life. So I stopped because I was like, I want to write about, I feel like I need to write about other things, but I can't go there. I can't do that. So when Diane posted the submission call, I was like, well, this is where my brain is going, so let me do that. And I also love an assignment. Like, give me a prompt. It is so fun.
Me too.
And you get things from when someone tells you to write about something versus where your brain's naturally going that you wouldn't have maybe gotten to. I wrote about an experience like a little over a year ago during Yom Kippur. I was in San Francisco visiting a friend whom I'd met during Birthright years and years ago. And we went to the local synagogue's kind of a meditation Yom Kippur service in the Presidio, like outside with the redwoods. It's California, so it's lovely out. And it was just, and then it was also Fleet Week. So you have like these jets and planes and stuff overhead. And it was just like seemingly at odds with each other, but it was also like really like a little microcosm for what was happening in the world. And I wouldn't have written about this. I don't know why. I didn't think about it. It's kind of one of those small moments that I hadn't thought about. But then when I had the prompt, I was like, well, what is some Jewish joy recently? Of course, the first thing you think is Yom Kippur.
I think we probably should explain that Yom Kippur is the holiest day and maybe the most somber day of the Jewish calendar. It's a day of atonement for those of you who might not be Jewish.
Yes. And you don't have to be a believer for it to be a day where you think about ways that you could have done better, because that's the way I approach it. Things you can do better in the world and people around you, things that you may not have done so great in the previous year. So I went to this and it was just this like very welcoming. I'm not really one for meditation, but meditation can mean a lot of things. So it was maybe very thoughtful and pensive, and the people I was around. And so when this call came, I was like, that was really special. And I love a metaphor. I love a nature metaphor. So,
Ooh.
you know, the redwoods and how hard they've fought and how they, you know, they've been cut down and they come back and they're big and they're incredible and they create protection and all that stuff. And it felt very comparable to Jewish life. So I just started writing it. And, you know, my friend's son and my daughter had never met. They're the same age. They're 11 now. And they got along in a very,
Ooh.
I've never seen, my daughter gets along with a lot of people, but it was like wild. And, you know, of course, a Jewish mom, I was like, oh my God, maybe in the future. But like, we had to tamp that down because we were a different
That's
generation.
about marriage,
Like,
everyone who may not
I was
understand
like,
that reference.
whatever you do with whomever you do it is fine. But I like just their connection. It all kind of worked to me to
Lovely.
see the connections of Jews around the world. The ecosystem of Jewish life was really out there in all the ways. So it just felt appropriate to write it. It was hard to keep it to the number of words because I feel like I could have really gone on. But that's also part of the fun. It's a geek game.
Yes, I
You gotta
agree with
keep it
that because it's
fast
1,500
and
words, right?
contained.
We had 1,500
I
words.
think it was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
1,500.
yeah.
And I submitted something to Diane a little over, and she's like, this has to be 1,500. And so that was a nice constraint. I appreciated that constraint too. Thanks, Jen. Nina, you wrote When a Norwegian Converts to Judaism. And I'm curious, and that's your contribution to this collection. What was especially important to you to convey in this essay?
So I felt like we have said here that at the time of the call and during, you know, days and months and years that were really hard to be Jewish, especially in the literary world. I mean, aside from if you live in a conflict zone, you know, that was all we kept seeing all around us was people being ghosted, people being dropped, losing contracts, not being invited to conferences. I mean, it was pretty dismal. And so this idea of writing about something joyful was immediately what inspired me, and the particular piece that I submitted, which is really about my oldest son's bar mitzvah, which I call the Viking Jew bar mitzvah, where I got to really talk about and show the reader, I hope, how when you come from a culture that is uniquely different from a Jewish culture, that some of the joy and the hard work really has been to marry them in a sense, right? To braid in what's joyful and meaningful of the Norwegian heritage that my boys have. I have 3 sons who all had bar mitzvahs that weren't all Viking themed. So it brought me back to that time and about how much work it was, but also how joyful it was. And it's a fairly unique combination, being Norwegian and Jewish and a convert. So it sort of came natural, and and so I wrote to that.
Well, you came on to Let's Talk Memoir to talk about Body, My Life in Parts, which is your new memoir. And I'm curious if the process of writing this felt very different. This essay, was it a different muscle at all? Was it the same? You know, can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I will say that the word that triggered me in the submission call was joy. The
Yeah.
idea of like putting that front and center was important for me. Now, I know there are pieces in here that aren't evidently or, you know, in your face about joy, but celebrating, you know, our heritage and our traditions and our communities and our bonds is part of a joy, even though sometimes it's complicated and difficult. Whereas, and I do, in my memoir, I do talk quite a bit. It's a memoir in essays. And several of the essays do talk about my life as a Jew by choice and how it has affected my life in good ways and how it's been challenging in many ways. So I find that writing memoir, even though I haven't written a memoir, like I don't have a trauma or recovery memoir, but like probably part of the conflict, if you want to take that as the starting point, you know, like there's a conflict, is finding the balance between the Jewish and the Norwegian. But it ended up being, I would say, many of my Jewish pieces in the memoir are not about, they're really more about the struggle. Okay, that's where I can go, because that's a great metaphor also for Jews and Jewish life, right? And the whole word of Israel, which means struggle, to struggle. And that is quite evident in the memoir. Whereas in Manna Songs and writing that essay, it was just, I just put all the struggle like away and just like felt buoyed. So
Yeah,
that
leaned
was
into the
actually,
joy.
yeah, that was like liberating in a way.
Yeah. And Jen, thank you, Nina. Jen, you wrote As If She Had a Say, the collection, and the Predatory Animal Ball collection. Those are fiction collections, both wonderful collections with beautiful covers. And and you publish nonfiction in different venues too. And you said just a little bit ago that you had maybe done 10% Jewish themed writing, like maybe by accident or it just happened. So now that you're in Manna Songs and you've had this out and it's post October 7th and you've written fiction and non, and what do you think your next where's your voice leading you right now?
It's been hard. So Bernita and I are actually in a writing group together where the goal every week we get together at a coffee shop to write, but I've just been doing work, my day job, my nonprofit day job stuff instead. So it's been really difficult to get back into it. And the way that I'm doing it actually is I have a novel written and I submitted it years ago and it got a lot of full manuscript requests. I talked to a lot of agents, but ultimately, nothing happened. So it's like, maybe that's my in where I'm not creating something new. Maybe I'm just going to go revisit that. I don't want to say it's easier because it's not, but it just feels like an easier in to get back into writing. I have been, which is usually my telltale signs of getting back into it, writing notes by my bedside in the middle of the night. Some of the notes, and you're writing over each other. I'm like, last night was white noise horror story. So like,
what's going on?
Not all gonna go anywhere.
That does not sound like Jewish joy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But so when I'm starting to have these flashes of inspiration, and that's actually where a lot of my stories come from, just like a dream or like one thing somebody says, that usually tells me that I'm headed towards production of stories. And I tend to actually write flash fiction. It's funny, Nina is my go-to. And I think it's because you can just do like all of those ideas can find a home. Whereas if I wrote longer form, I wouldn't be able to put all of those ideas into a story. So I don't know. I'm just starting to get back into it. It is a very slow go. But even prior to all the October 7th happenings, I would ebb and flow. I would write a ton, be really prolific for a while, and then I would stop and it would always come back. So I'm not really ever nervous that it's not.
Yeah, I think that's lovely because it can be so nerve-wracking when you're in a spell like that.
And this is a little bit of a different reasoning behind it. So I'm not, but it'll come back. I feel like the writing world is different, but there's, and I have to figure out navigating that when I'm ready to publish again. But I also feel like there's plenty of good people, open people, Jewish people, allies. Like, I just have to like readjust my writing community a little bit. But
felt that too.
I'm lucky to have good people in my life. So some people I think felt abandoned and then didn't have alternatives, and that is awful. So, hoping to write again. My daughter really likes to write, and she's just newly in middle school, so she's been asking for some help with things, which is like delightful.
Yeah, that's really nice.
So yeah, so I don't know that I have a where am I going next. I want to kind of focus on my novel and short.
But Jen, I have a question.
Yes.
This is Nina speaking. I have a question about your novel that you're sort of thinking about unearthing and working on. Does it have Jewish content?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
like
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I probably wrote it. I don't even know time anymore. I want to say that I wrote it a little before the pandemic. It's like, it's Jewish themed, but it's not, you wouldn't even know that going into the book because it kind of comes out later. And it's, there's some witch trials, there's an abandoned windblown Northeast island, which I love setting. So like setting for me is the ultimate way to get into a story. And typically when I like something, it's because it's got a really strong setting.
Mhm.
Like feel myself there. I want to feel myself in the story.
Interesting.
So yes, it does.
Cool.
Thank you for that. I'm curious, Diane, we're going to, in just a few minutes, we're going to have each of you read from your essays. But Diane, can you talk about the process of organizing and putting the 32 essays in order
Sure.
and how you created that, how you came to that decision in order?
Sure. So I was actually going to jump in and say a little bit about each of your essays. And Ronit, you have to talk about yours too.
Yes.
Okay, Diane, you have the floor. Please go ahead and lead
Okay.
us into this section.
So Jen's
Editor.
actually is the last essay. There I have, and Nina, your for your journal, the topic of roots, right? I chose two essays about trees to kind of root the collection, the
Love that.
anthology. And I just found that to be such a powerful beginning and ending. And it's the anthology is about our roots, that go way back. And so that just came to me. What I do is I will choose the essays that I want to include in the anthology, and then I will print them out and I will just take up a floor, take up a bed, take up any space in the house. And I kind of see, I don't have like subtopics in advance. I kind of see which ones talk to each other, this one wants to sit near this one. And, this one needs to go before the other one. And this one, and it just kind of happens, it just falls into place. It's this magical thing.
That's amazing.
A little bit of
Yeah.
intuition.
It's like it is intuition, but I just kind of feel like it's this thing. I never really thought of it so much as intuition. It's kind of outside of me.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way, like intuition is inside.
Yeah, I hear what
like
you're
I
saying.
feel like this is like a magical thing outside.
Yeah. Magical intuition.
Yeah.
Intuitive magic.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Magic.
Yeah, but I think it's so fun to put something together and sort of figure out
so
how to
fun.
organize it. And, I do want to say before you read from your essays, for someone who's listening who may not understand, why we keep talking about October 7th and not keep, but why we've been talking about it and referencing it today in this conversation and what we mean about being Jewish now and what it's been like on a literary level and publishing level. Do you want to just add a little bit to give some more context about that and why we're talking about this?
Are you asking Diane or
Anyone?
all of us, or?
Anyone? Any of
I
you,
think
my friends?
I have a lot of opinions and feelings on it, but I will not go into all of them. But in short, regardless of where you fall on your ideas, if you are Jewish, you are being questioned about where you stand on something in a way that nobody does for any other group of people. And to not be able to exist just as a Jewish person without being asked where you stand, what you think, and that people's instinct is suspicion, that's really hard. And so in the literary world, if you were Jewish or writing about Jewish stuff, some people don't. I mean, the truth is there's not a lot of us out there. Most celebrities have more followers than there are Jewish people in the world. So like, regardless of whatever we need to get out there, it's just not going to get out there. Our voices are going to be tamped down. And, ideas of who we are spread, and we can't beat that. And so we're constantly asked who we are, what we stand for. We're not believed. And that is really difficult. And so as a result, in the writing community that tends to be very progressive, that I stand with, like a lot of those stances are ones I agree with. And I think with the war, like there absolutely is a conversation. There are some legitimate concerns on both sides, but the nuance was not seen. And so immediately, if you submit something and it has Jewish themes, people who just don't know enough, they just assume that that's a bad person. Or even if you're writing about Hanukkah or like whatever you're writing about, and that was really difficult. And especially if you're just like submitting something, you can't have a conversation with that person and be like, why do you think that way? Well, here's actually and it wasn't an open place. And I had seen that towards Jews before October 7th also. And it's unfortunate. A lot of it stems from people don't know enough about Jews and Jewish life because they don't know enough Jewish people. We're not a monolith, but also like there are just basic things that people don't understand. And it was really difficult and continues to be difficult, but it's also made me, I'm rambling now, but I do have a point. It's made me really realize, kind of like what I was saying before, that a lot of these artistic worlds are very tit for tat and performative in lots of different ways. And I'm really trying to get at like being around real, like if somebody doesn't want me for who I am, I'm not going to argue with them. Like I don't need to, don't need to spend my life and time dealing with that. So it's a recalibration, but it's also, I love being Jewish. Being Jewish is so cool. Like the fact that we do the same traditions that we have for like thousands of years, that's like amazing. The fact that people have tried to kill us and destroy our culture and we're like, nah, we're just going to keep on keeping on is incredible. The fact, probably because we're so small of a group, that you can go somewhere and connect with someone just because they're Jewish and you have this immediate, and it doesn't mean you're going to like them. That's not, but like you have an immediate connection. You move to a new town, you have an immediate support. Like it's really pretty magical and I love it.
Thanks, Jen.
And our ethics, I think, are really what guide me. And I think that that's like really magical and special and important.
And I think, and if I can say like what I heard about and read about and also experienced as a Jewish writer in the aftermath of October 7th and during the duration of the war, which was terrible, right? A terrible war, was that unless you were able to denounce, like make a public statement that you denounce Israel and that you're against Zionism, you risked being excluded. So I wonder, can you imagine if I went to a literary conference and I was making selections and deciding things, and I said to a Muslim writer, unless you're denouncing, jihadism or, whatever, like to a creative Muslim person, if you don't, make a public statement that you are against this, you're not going to be allowed in. Can you imagine? It just,
It wouldn't happen,
so
the double standard is crazy.
That's been demoralizing and frustrating and very, very upsetting. Because like Jen says, we're not monolith. We have all the colors of the rainbow, both as people and opinions. And there's no room for that.
And that's why I think a book like Manna Songs is so important today, because it
bring it back, Diane.
Yeah, I'm bringing it back because, well, it's like
because she's the editor.
I think it's a statement to the literary world, to the world out loud. Here we are. Read about us. I'm sure that you'll find something of value.
Yeah.
Even if you try not to. And it's a beautiful statement that we still can be seen. And it's really been sort of, the book focuses on Jewish joy, but the whole process for me has been, and for I think a lot of the contributors, has been such a joyful experience and so much needed
Bomb.
in the
celebrations too, because I'm flying, I'm going to California on Sunday to go do a reading at a temple with a couple of the writers. I haven't been able to go to the other events, but there's events around the country for celebrations for this release. And I do want to say, before you two read from the book, Diane, where can people get a copy of Manna Songs?
Well, you can go directly to the publisher, ELJ Editions, or you can purchase it on Amazon.
Yes. And I want to also suggest that if you have a Jewish person in your life, or if you're interested in learning more about the various approaches to this culture and religion and just being Jewish in the world now, it's a great idea as a gift for the holidays, especially, if you know someone and you're looking for a Hanukkah gift, and it'll arrive in time. As of this airing, you have plenty of time to
Yes.
get this. And it's a beautiful cover, and it's just a lovely way to
Oh,
support. Yeah, go ahead.
can I just say, Roni, the
Yeah.
cover, we actually had a different cover. It was a photograph. Somebody hold up the book? I don't know
Yeah, I
why I
got it.
didn't have
Here I
mine.
have it.
Okay. So it was a photograph of candlesticks, challah, and a Kiddush cup. And I was talking to one of the contributors, and she said, "Let me see that cover." And I showed it to her, and she said, "Oh my God, I have a painting with everything with that looks just like that, but it's a painting, and you can use it." So Aliza Martin is one of
Mm-hmm.
the contributors, and she created the cover.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's so lovely that happened that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
Nina, what did you
you
want to say?
know, I wanted to say also that I have actually given copies to the book to my non-Jewish friends.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's so smart.
Yeah, because, they're my friends and they love me, but they're also puzzled by and intimidated by, kind of almost on my behalf, everything that's going on. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's been a way to share with them like perspectives and something else than what we see on our social media and on CNN and MSNBC. So it's been like a way for me to say, here,
Yes.
we are this, right?
Yeah, which is not easy to quantify or qualify. And I and
Right.
I and I want to say before, you asked me about my contribution to the collection, and I will say that mine is called That Temple Feeling, which has a lot to do with my experience going to different Reformed temples, synagogues in my childhood, being raised by my father after my mom left, how I married a non-Jewish person, how I've raised my children. And there's sort of an ambiguous feeling about the temple. I then went on to teach Hebrew reading and writing for years at our synagogue and teach Jewish history. And I had students from the ages of third grade up to ninth grade. So I got to really be with these young adults and these young children as my kids were growing, and the sense of pride I had in teaching them, but also my own roots and how there were painful times during my childhood when my mom wasn't there. She didn't come to my bat mitzvah, and
Mm.
she wasn't available for that. And so there was just a lot of mixed feelings for me. So mine, when the call came in and I submitted, I didn't know what to write, but what came out for me was this essay, which to me is like about my mixed and strange and joyous feelings. And
Mm.
I would be honored if people wanted to read my essay. And on that note, how about we have Nina read an excerpt of hers, and then we'll have Jen read an excerpt from hers.
Okay, so I'm going to read from When a Norwegian Converts to Judaism, the Viking Bar Mitzvah, and Other Adventures in Jewish Joy. Helmets with horns on every table. Check. Big plastic swords decorating walls. Check. 5 varieties of homemade herring on the buffet. Check. Homemade gravlax, sliced and ready for 250 guests. Check. Aquavit and shot glasses on the adult beverage table. Check. I wipe my hands on the long white chef's apron tied around my waist, protecting my flowing maxi off-white skirt and long-sleeved wraparound top as my gaze wanders to the wall-mounted clock in our shul's social hall. Time for me to join the others in the sanctuary, family and friends from near and far, our regular congregants always included in each other's simchas, and best of all, my firstborn son, 13-year-old Tobias, about to be bombarded by the iconic Norwegian fun-sized candy as soon as he finishes the last blessing over his Haftorah portion. I have been Jewish since I was 23, and in this moment I am a 43-year-old veteran Jew by choice, who has joyfully embraced all the practices of a modern Orthodox life in suburban East Coast America. Except you can take the girl out of Norway, but you can't take Norway out of the girl. A funny thing happened when I immigrated to the US and converted to Judaism. As my Jewish identity rooted itself in my muscle, memory, and viscera, my emotional memory simmered on a slow fire, stoking my nostalgia for all things Norwegian and perhaps also for my Norwegian identity itself, which had ceded way to my newfound Yiddishkeit on steroids. I lived in Norway from birth until the age of 19 when I left for the States with a gap year plan. Then, just a year turned into 40 before I knew it. I was not brought up with much tradition, and certainly not with any of Norway's cultural tradition of Christian Lutheranism. In fact, raised in Oslo as a latchkey kid with what today would be considered way too much freedom, I must have yearned for what the observant Jewish life I later immersed myself in would provide. Rules, framework, tradition, predictability, clear parameters for yes and no, can and can't, should and shouldn't, and lots of home-cooked festive meals. I loved my life as a Jewish woman, then wife, then mother. I thrived as I had found my happy place, my meaningful existential purpose. My three sons were, of course, all circumcised, went to Jewish day school from nursery through 8th grade, have Jewish names like Tuvia Yaakov, Gavriel Nadav, and Benjamin Reuel. For the first 14 years of their lives, they wore kippot and tzitzit, and if one of them picked up a pair of scissors or a marker on Shabbat, the others would yell, Muktzah, Muktzah, trained as they had been at school and at home about steering clear of forbidden activities on the day of rest. They played the best together on Shabbat when electronics were off the table and they had to be creative and collaborative in making their fun, and I involved them in Shabbat and holiday preparations so that they could take ownership in the outcome, our special times together, celebrating Jewish traditions joyfully. In essence, I gave them everything I did not have growing up, and I believe they are happy for it.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you. Okay, Jen.
Can I
So
just say, Nina's essay, it just screams joy.
Yeah. Yeah. The
And
pace too. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just I just have to give you a shout out. Yay, Nina.
I love reading about other cultures and learn, especially, you know, if there's Jewish connection, it's really interesting to me, but I really like that because I find it fascinating. And I love geography and people from different places and learning about that. So
Yeah,
I really liked your essay as well.
Thanks.
So for mine, it's called The Understory. What is a tree to a Jew? We plant trees in a land many of us have never been to. The bushy tree of life is evident in more than one synagogue stained glass windows. We have an entire holiday, Tu B'Shvat, celebrating trees. Baal Tashit, while it now applies to other things, began with an order to not destroy trees and is a guiding principle of Jewish ethics. Is there a more appropriate place for humans to atone than in a grove of redwoods, where right now in the Presidio, the city is planting new trees in an attempt at reforestation? Is there a more apt metaphor for Jews in this world, cut down by the masses and steadily, slowly trying to rebuild ourselves, our community? My 10-year-old daughter and I are in San Francisco visiting R, a friend whom I've known nearly 20 years, a lifetime, someone's lifetime. This year, on Yom Kippur, we find ourselves in the Presidio in a copse of redwood trees. Under the tree canopy, we sit on the blanket of one of R's friends. There are surprisingly 7 of us spread on M's blankets, sharing the space tucked in tightly beside each other. In front of me, I can't really see the rabbi or the team running the service, as there's a redwood directly in front of me, but my view isn't entirely obstructed. The tree has split into 2, and in the V, I see the occasional flip of a talit or an arm strumming a guitar. Beside me, my daughter rests her head on my thigh. I run my fingers through her hair. Beside her is R, who occasionally reaches over to touch my arm, smile in that way she smiles. Lets me know how special it is that I'm there, that we are all sharing this communal, ethereal, arboreal experience together. We Jews here are the understory. Redwoods have a dense root system that spreads far and wide, tangling with that of other redwoods for stability. These trees also have high tannin levels. That means no resin or pitch spills from its bark, and they're relatively immune to fungi, insects, and other tree diseases. Miraculously, they're also quite resistant to fire, of which there's been plenty plaguing through the American West. These trees, they just keep on surviving. It is Fleet Week in San Francisco. There are fighter jet demonstrations all weekend. Above the far, far away treetops, the glimpse of a jet careening its way through the sky, deafening, sonic. Miles away, we all know, but do not say, that there are others living under thundering jets, the threat of war. Our jets are here are for fun, for demonstration, to see what we are capable of, in the resounding drawl of American bravado. The brittle debris of the trees, rust-colored shades of brown, get caught in the fibers of the blanket, and while I hum along to the dulcet, familiar melodies of an ancient language, I rub these in my fingers. The leaves turn into a kind of dirt. It too is an ancient language, the leaves growing and engaging with the sunlight, then falling to meet with those who went before it, to turn to dust, to again feed the next generation. In all communities, small rural ones, bustling urban ones, and in far-flung locales, Jews continuously are reforesting themselves where they land. When the service is over, I help M fold his blanket. It's white and soft, more suited for a pristine linen sofa than the ground, not for the dirt, and yet he has shared this white blanket with friends and strangers to be more comfortable. We pull debris from its fibers and brush off the leaves as best we can. Em and I laugh about it not being ideal, and he says something about comfort not always being comfortable, and I will think about the depths of that comment for months. We then meet up with our son. To our delight, my daughter and he get on remarkably well, and easily. They laugh and share the same frames of reference. They ruminate over Lego creations and create several inside jokes in just a few days. They're connected by more, it seems, something intangible, invisible. Their antics go on all weekend. My friend and I meet each other's eyes, silently saying, will you look at this incredible connection? These Jewish children will go forward when we are no longer able to, when we spiral down from the tree of life to meet on the forest floor. Collective nouns always fascinate me, how a single thing is just the thing, but when there are several, it becomes something else, something larger, stronger. A group of fighter jets is called a squadron. A group of trees is called a forest. A group of Jews is called a miracle.
Thank you.
Ooh,
I have to
so
say that
lovely.
essay gets me every time.
Yeah,
Every
Thank you.
time. And I think closing out the anthology is like the perfect place.
Thank
Thanks,
you. I
Jen.
was honored by that.
So
And Ronit,
yes.
Ronit, you're not gonna
No,
read from yours?
it's okay. Mine doesn't close us off in quite the same way. And I feel like mine, I would love people to get the collection and read mine.
Yours
go ahead
has
and get
very
Can I
good
just
setting.
say something about yours?
Yes, sure.
May I?
Thanks,
May
Diane.
I? Okay,
Thank
so what I love about Ronit's, first of all, hers is I'm the only one with a really unique structure. What is that called again?
My dad told me, because I told him what my structure was, and he used a really good word that's specific. It's not ekphrastic. It's something else.
No.
It's a very old form of, I should know what this is.
I know the word is just
what
like
it's
escaping me.
It almost, it's like an old word, like it's thousands of years old or something. So the word, what it is that I'm spelling out an expression, a Hebrew expression, and each paragraph begins with a letter that spells this out.
And it's Am Yisrael Chai.
Yeah.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Yeah.
And each paragraph begins with the letter.
It's kind of like an
spelling it out.
ABCdarian, but not the alphabet.
Right, not ABC. But there is a word. Maybe we'll figure
Acrostic.
it out.
Acrostic, right? Not
Yes,
acrostic.
thank
It's
you.
acrostic with a K, right?
Thank you,
AK
Nina.
With a C.
with a C.
But,
Acrostic.
but
Thank
it's
you.
probably Greek. So
Yes, that's what it sounds like. It's Greek.
Thank you, Nina.
Yeah.
I just want to say, so I love that it had that structure, but it's also, it speaks to the connection that we can have to a synagogue, it's just so hard to describe, but you do such a beautiful
Thank
job
you.
of it. And it also is like your childhood.
Yeah. And you
which
know what?
was-
I loved using that. You know how Jen said she enjoyed, the 1,500 words. She loves a good challenge. And then, this was a call for a particular type of essay. And then she liked the challenge of the word count. I was having a hard time. And I just thought, let me write into this form. This will help me, because I was just having a difficult time with my writing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use this as my crutch, basically. And then I had to really organize which paragraph would be where, because it began a certain way. And it was really fun for me. It was like a puzzle. So I really enjoyed doing that.
And
I
it's
love
weird
to
how
work-
constraints can like give you freedom.
It can bring out so much creativity, I think, too. Ronit, I loved reading yours. as kind of like a follow-up to your memoir.
Oh, thank you.
It felt like, in the DVDs, which like that's how we used to watch movies.
Yes.
Is there would be like the extra features. So I feel like your memoir is like the main movie, and then there was extra features, and your essay kind of felt like it worked as an extra
That's lovely.
feature.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thank you so
can I
much.
say what I loved?
Yes.
I loved how your essay shows how our Jewish lives are journeys, how they're not static in time, and that our emotions and experiences and sense of belonging or sense of satisfaction or insecurity can go through and does go through phases, and that's actually that we embrace that's part of the whole point.
Yes, it's the
know.
becoming, the journey. Sorry to use a very well worn, word, but the process of becoming ourselves is the life.
Yeah.
It's part of what I, about being Jewish, about writing, about being a memoirist, and it's just we don't know the full answers, but it's the process of trying to understand them. At least
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for that. And we're really quickly share a link where people can find you. And I will, of course, put the links as well as the link to the book purchase in the show notes. So Jen, why don't you
Okay.
start?
I have a website called jenniferflisscreative.com. And everything kind of can be found from there. But my recent collection is from Northwestern University Press. So if you go to their website, you can get that book there. And I just need to give the shout out for the cover of that because you had mentioned. And that's Jessie Lee Kercheval, who's another Jewish writer.
I love
That's
her
art.
work.
She's so multifaceted. I've never actually met her in person, but she would share her paintings. And I was like, one day I would like that to be the cover of my book. And so when my editor, Marissa, at Northwestern was like, do you have any ideas for a cover? I was like, I do.
That's great.
And it's very Marc Chagall-like too. So it just feels, there's a little bit of Jewish stuff in there, but not tons. But yes, so that's where, and then my first book is a small press called OK Donkey. They have a Big Cartel website, I believe, and they also have a literary journal, and they're great. Their journal is interesting. They seem to be growing, which is wonderful. And I really liked working with them. And that was my first book published. So shout out to them.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, Nina.
All right. So I am on ninalichtenstein.com. That's my personal author website. And then also people can find me at mainwriterstudio.com. And I have a Substack called The Viking Jewess and Other Curiosities.
Thanks,
I need
Nina.
to subscribe to that.
Yeah. Okay, and
I love
finally,
that.
Diane, where can we find you?
Sure. DianeGottlieb.com. And I'm doing a pitch for send your work to Emerge Literary Journal. And ELJ Editions is doing, if you want an assignment, I have one for you, a calendar for 2027. Each page will highlight a different flash piece, 250 words max.
Ooh,
So
cool.
send
That's
it in.
wonderful.
Send it in.
I love
And then
it.
there's a new anthology I'm editing that we're going to announce officially in December, but it's going to be called Digging Up Bones, Reflections on Trauma and Recovery.
Oh,
So-
wow. So busy, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been lovely. This has
Thank you,
been
Ronit.
a wonderful time for me to spend with all of you. And I still feel like I've met most of you in person. I mean, I do know Jen in person, but I've never seen Diane or Nina in person, but I feel like we're old friends. And I want
I
to
do
thank you for
too.
being my guests, and congratulations
Thank
to all of
you.
us on this book. And go out and get a copy, everyone. It's a beautiful gift, and your words are beautiful. Your work is beautiful. Thank you for being my guests.
Thanks
Thanks
Ronit.
for having
so
us.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Memoir. For more about my story and the project that started me on my memoir-loving path, you can check out my memoir, When She Comes Back, which is available wherever books are sold, and as an audiobook that I narrated. For more about this episode and my guest, please visit the links in the show notes. You can also find a complete catalog of Let's Talk Memoir episodes at ronitplank.com/Let's Talk Memoir. Let's Talk Memoir is also on Substack. About once a month, I publish memoir craft advice, additional interviews, and upcoming classes that I'm offering. There's no paywall. If you are a fan of Let's Talk Memoir, please feel free to share it with your friends. And if you feel moved to leave a podcast rating and review, I appreciate it very much. That helps more writers and readers find the show. Thank you so much for being here.